Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. There has been some absolutely massive breaking news as Manchester United announced that Erik Ten Hag has been sacked and will leave his role as the manager of the club. I'm joined by you, Jay, obviously, in the comments. Get your thoughts in. Absolutely massive news, this. News that maybe we saw coming in one sense, but it does feel a surprise at the timing of this. Before we get into anything else, please take us through the club statement. There was an initial tweet by Fabrizio Romano saying that it looks like this is going to happen. That was followed up a minute or so later by Ornstein saying this has happened. That itself was then followed up by Manchester United, obviously not wanting to let people get out ahead of this particularly, announcing officially that Ten Hag has been sacked. Can we just get that statement from you, Jay, quickly?
Yeah, this statement was released by the club on the website and on social media 3 minutes ago, and it says Erik Ten Hag has left his role as Manchester United's men's first team manager. Erik was appointed in April 2022 and led the club to 2 domestic trophies, winning the Carabao Cup in 2023 and the FA Cup in 2024. We are grateful to Erik for everything he has done during his time with us and wish him well for the future. Ruud van Nistelrooy will take charge of the team as interim head coach, supported by the current coaching team, whilst a permanent head coach is recruited. So relatively short and sweet. There's not a lot of meat on the bones there, but it's sort of saying what it needs to say. That basically Ruud's taking over.
Yep.
Erik Ten Hag is gone. They've sort of thanked him and pointed out the fact that he did win back-to-back trophies. You're never going to get many details in a club statement when someone's getting sacked. It's not like they're going to start giving you reasons and what's gone wrong and all the rest of it. And I imagine that despite the fact he's been sacked, there's been some sort of, agreement in terms of statements and what's being said. Yeah. Usually, managers have a bit of an NDA, don't we? We saw it with the other managers like Ollie and Jose. Ollie was a bit different in the sense that he did a post sort of sacking interview, which I don't expect Erik Ten Hag to do. But yeah, Joe, I want to get your thoughts because me and you were chatting this morning and was hearing a couple of rumblings, but nothing major. And the annoying thing is that it's not just about yesterday's game, but yesterday's game in particular was annoying. Yeah. The way it went down, and obviously that's the straw that's brought the camel's back. Yeah,
I mean, I said after the Tottenham game, I think it's a matter of time now. I don't know what will be his last game. I don't know why it will be his last game, but it felt as though he was done then. And I think the game yesterday, I hadn't even spoken about it. I wasn't on the channel yesterday, and it was such an infuriating game. And bizarrely, it's a game that I wouldn't blame on Erik Ten Hag at all. I think the United missing those chances is what cost us the win, and the terrible VAR decision is what costed us the draw. But eventually it comes down to the manager, and like I said, it felt like this was inevitable, didn't it? The loss to Liverpool, the loss to Tottenham, the fact that we've won, 2 of our last 9 games or something in all competitions, the terrible season in the league last year, followed up by an even worse start this season. Like, we were the worst we've ever been in the Premier League era, and then we've got worse. So it's no surprise that this has happened. I just feel a bit gutted. I just feel it's the sort of time as a club and as a fan where everything's up in the air, and it's just we've clearly reached rock bottom here.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, this is the worst it gets. I mean, obviously we can lose more games, but the fact that the manager's been sacked shows how bad things have been at Manchester United for the last couple of years, and it's disappointing. I mean, obviously now the next step is looking at who's next and who's going to come in. We've heard that it's going to be Ruud van Nistelrooy on an interim basis, and it's almost this part of me that's a little bit put off, and I don't want to say sickened, but the fact that we all knew this was going to happen. When Van Nistelrooy came in, everyone went, he'll be the manager by Christmas. Everyone said it. We all knew. It's like they brought him in to sack Ten Hag.
Yeah.
And I do think that there's an element, and whether he deserves to go overall or not, and he probably does, looking at what's gone on. The results are just so bad. But he was sort of destined to fail this season, Ten Hag. The fact that they interviewed other managers in the summer, discussed bringing in Thomas Tuchel, maybe the wages aren't going to work out, spoke to Kieran McKenna, spoke to Thomas Frank. Like, they came out and spoke to different managers to try and get rid of Ten Hag and didn't. The fact that they brought in a manager who is himself a first team coach, who has won trophies as a first team coach in Ruud van Nistelrooy, all of these things just led to the fact that he's going to go. This isn't an environment where managers can succeed. So I'm not blaming Ineos for the results by any means, but I do think that we put ourselves in a position this summer and then back that up by not getting a striker who's a goal scorer, which is what we've needed for 2 years. we put ourselves in a position this summer where this was almost inevitable, and now it's happened. So am I surprised? No. But I do think that we could have done this very differently.
Yeah, I agree. It's quite interesting. I think you can see, I think we've had the club statement and the picture that he chose for Erik ten Hag on that. I think it's from yesterday's game, actually, looking a bit downbeat, which says it all. You mentioned there about the results. Just going to go through. We're going to get into the chat in the comments. Loads of people in the comments already. Hit that like button as well, please, people. Whether you like the decision or not, you can like the video. So this season, I'm just going to go through some of the results. Or I'll go through all of them quickly. It won't take me long. We obviously won the opening fixture against Fulham. Then we lost away at Brighton. We lost at home to Liverpool. We beat Southampton away. We drew away with Crystal Palace. We lost 3-0 at home to Spurs. We drew with Villa 0-0. We won at home to Brentford, and then we lost yesterday, of course, to West Ham. In the Carabao Cup, we battered Barnsley 7-0. In the Europa League, we drew with Porto, Fenerbahce. Sorry, I'll do it in order. FC 28 at Old Trafford 1-1. Porto away 3-0. Fenerbahce away 1-0. The issue you had with those results is the fact we were leading in all those games, and also it's been a year since we've won in Europe, which is another sort of nail in the coffin for Erik ten Hag. I don't think there's one, you don't go, well, drawing away at Porto did for him, or even yesterday on its own didn't do for him. But when you finished 8th last season, when you've had the run of results, when you've got statistics saying that, United had the worst Premier League season ever last season and are on course for a worse one this season, we are on the worst European run we've had in 40 odd years. Yeah. These stats add up and they play into people's minds. Just as well on the point you were making about Ruud van Nistelrooy, Joe. I heard some of the lads was chatting about the crowd turning on him a little bit yesterday, Ruud van Nistelrooy. I mentioned to you when I was away in not Ruud van Nistelrooy, sorry, Erik ten Hag. Right. That usually, when you start losing some of the away fans, in particular, not just the away fans usually die hard, get behind the manager.
I mean, they're the smallest, most concentrated minority of intense football fans, aren't they?
100%.
They're travelling and spending more than anyone else, spending more of their time, and it makes sense that they would stick with you the longest.
When you lose them, or some of them, you start to struggle. We saw it with Ollie at Watford when obviously the crowd turned against him and Bruno Fernandes was saying, don't blame him, blame us. Yeah. When I was in Porto, it felt like Ruud was the manager. Yeah. It felt, remember I was saying to you, he got booked during the first half for kicking off the referee. He came over and took it, we were cheering his name, and Erik ten Hag came to the halfway line and then went back. Ruud carried on, obviously Ruud, a popular guy because of what he did as a player, and it just felt like this was inevitable almost. Yeah. I'm going to go through, there's loads of super chats, loads of comments. I'll go through and then I'll come back to you. The White Kitty, who's been a member of the first team for 4 months, says, let's go, Xavi in ASAP. Can I ask you about that? Did you make anything at all? I think I know the answer, but I'll ask you anyway. Anything at all of the Xavi picture with his kid wearing a United top that his missus posted? Do you think there was any mischief making there? I don't even know what
you're asking me, to be honest.
You really don't?
I've seen the picture.
Right.
But what is the question?
Do you think there was anything in that?
What, that Xavi's wife knew he was getting sacked?
Knew that Xavi was going to take over at United?
If he does, yes. But it's one of them, isn't it? Well, it's just a thing. Like, a kid is wearing the shirt of one of the biggest teams in the world. Yeah. If his dad takes over in 2 weeks' time, then that was probably why. If not, then, well, of course, he could have been wearing an Mbappe PSG shirt. Or he could have been wearing anything.
I said this morning it was nonsense, but I'll go with you. I'll edge my bets.
Yeah.
Callum Bryant says, if social media had existed when Sir Alex Ferguson first joined United, he wouldn't have survived with his fan base. This feels rushed. Akash K says, Ineos have let the players off the hook here. I am truly stunned they have sacked Erik ten Hag here. Even so, they prepared to pay him $15 million to walk away. Lauren Rose says, it feels like we're back to square one. Will we ever get it right? Inevitable though, unfortunately. Ryan Stubbs says, thanks for the cut wins, Erik ten Hag, but the time is right. I want to make a point on this and ask you a question. Loads of people now will be saying he should have gone after the FA Cup final. Now, hindsight is a wonderful thing. But do you still think it was the right decision to at least give him this season to start with? Do you think he earned that?
Yeah,
because people now will say, well, we should have. But then, had we not, then the question would have always been, if things didn't go wrong for the next manager, why did we get rid of ten Hag? Do you think ten Hag deserved this opportunity because of what he did in the cup?
Yeah, he definitely
why I'm doing that.
He definitely,
that's the cup.
He definitely deserved the start of this season. And unfortunately for him, like I said before, he was fatally undermined by the board and by the rest of the team at United, because he, with everything that happened in the summer, this felt inevitable. This felt like it was always going to happen.
Yeah.
But you have to give a manager another game after an FA Cup final. People still talk about Louis van Gaal like what could have been. And now with Ten Hag, you can still say what could have been. But you know a little bit more that maybe it was never going to work out. And I think it's unfortunate for Ten Hag that Ineos came in when they did. And I'm not saying I wish we still had the Glazers, but I think if you're trying to time a manager coming in, and a new ownership coming in, they're always going to want to get rid of the current manager. They just are. Unless he's Sir Alex Ferguson, and you obviously aren't going to sack him. There's always going to be a tendency to want to bring in your own manager, and that's probably hurt Ten Hag. Then there's lots of things that have hurt him. The fact that we've not, brought in a striker that can score goals consistently for the last 3 or 4 years, that's going to hurt him. I do think that he had to be given the start of this season, and maybe he should have been given a little bit longer than this. But at least we know now that this season wasn't the one where we immediately pushed on and turned it around. You can have a little bit more sort of safety in the knowledge that we started the season even worse than last season, which was the worst season we've seen in 30 years. So, yeah, maybe this season's a bit of a write-off now because we did that, and it's turned out to be the wrong thing. But you couldn't do it any other way, I don't think. And it would have been... Like, people still talk about, I mean, maybe not now because Maresca's kind of doing well at Chelsea, but up until the end of last season, people were still saying they shouldn't have sacked Tuchel. And that was 18 months before. Yeah. Because he had a bit of a rough start, but you never quite were sure that he should go. So I do think that they had to do it, but the way they went about everything, it just meant that it was never really going to work, was it? It wasn't.
It felt like it was almost doomed to failure with the whole changing everything except the manager, changing the coaching staff, changing the hierarchy, changing everything. I mentioned it in my news this morning as well. I think our transfer policy this summer was flawed. Naive is the word I use, to not get a goal scorer and a left back as well. Just seemed like we were just burying our head in the sand a little bit because we were hoping that Xerxes was going to exceed expectations in terms of goals, that Rasmus Højlund was going to kick on and score more goals than last season, that Marcus was going to regain his mojo from a few seasons ago, and that Garnacho and Diallo were going to do something and they never done in the Premier League and get into, I think, double figures in Premier League goals. It seemed naive to me. We'll get more thoughts from you, Joe. I'm going to go into comments as well, so keep them coming. Hit that like button as well, please, people. You don't have to like the fact he's been sacked, but you can like the video. Just one thing as well. Mike Keegan has tweeted, a tweet that I've just lost as soon as I go to go on it. Oh, there it is. And he says, those within Old Trafford say Ten Hag decision a difficult one, but unanimous, no momentum, no progress. Club took into account poor start in the Premier League and Europa League, could find no excuses. Put simply, they were just not seeing improvement. I think I get it. I think that's relatively fair in terms of a reason you're not seeing improvement. I think we can all agree with that. The question is whether you thought you would see improvement eventually, whether you could put it down. I think one of the issues Erik Ten Hag had this season is we haven't got as many injuries. So you can't say, he said it the other day, didn't he? He got ridiculed when he said, we've got injuries. Yes, Mason Mount's not available. Yes, we've still got an issue at left back. But it's not like we've got loads of injuries. You know what I mean? It felt like it's deeper than just injuries, the reason we're not scoring enough goals and we're losing games in the way we do. I'm going to go through some of the comments. I'll go through some Super Chats and non-Super Chat comments as well. Keep them coming. Echo's Face says, here we go again. Another rebuild, another 500 million to be spent, another process. They should have done this at the beginning of the season. Bill O'Reilly, who's been a member of the first team for 34 months, thanks for your support. Very disappointed, but it is what it is. Have to focus on the future now with a new manager who may be able to get a tune from these players. Joshua Bowater, gutted about this, but it was inevitable. I'll be disappointed if replacing him drags out. We should really have a successor lined up before sacking. Poor Gill. We never learn, the same thing over and over, no stability, and we continue to allow the media and fake fans on social media to pushing narratives.
Just on the future, and we'll probably talk about this more in the Paddock podcast later today and, go through some of the options. But look at some of the people who have been recruited this summer. And I don't mean this as disrespect to Maresca because I know he's doing a good job with Chelsea, but he is a manager from the Championship. Bayern Munich have got Vincent Kompany as their manager.
Yeah.
It's not been an easy summer to get new people in. And I know, again, Arne Slot's doing very good with Liverpool, but it's a manager with limited success from the Dutch league. These are the sort of track records that top clubs are getting at the moment. And not all of those managers will be successful long term, because with Slot, with Maresca, with company, we've seen it at United. Ten Hag had a good first season. Solskjaer had a good first season. Jose had a good second season, as it tends to be with him. Van Gaal had a good first season. Like, all of these managers often will come in and have a good season, but what is the pool of managers that we're actually dipping into here? Where I know Southgate rumours have been pushed back, and I'm not sitting here pretending that I think we're going to get him. But the fact that he's even on the list, or on the potential list, gives you a bit of an indication as to what the current market looks like. Who can we even get? The most obvious options are a bloke from the Netherlands who happens to be a bit of a club legend in Ruud van Nistelrooy, who's managed one career season as a manager in his life. Okay, that's limited. I know he got a Dutch Cup, but he's managed 1 year. The other options are the German manager who's just signed a new contract in Nagelsmann, who you're probably not going to be able to get from there. Kieran McKenna, who's just signed a 6-year contract at Ipswich. Like, Zidane, who has only ever managed Real Madrid and doesn't speak English and doesn't want to manage Man United.
No, he doesn't.
What are the options? What are we actually going to do here? I know you said you've got to have something lined up, and I get that you can't always decide when your team starts capitulating in terms of results. So, Ineos can't be blamed for the fact that we've lost all these games exclusively, and sometimes you just have to make a decision. But what are we going to do? Genuinely, what are we going to do? I don't know who we get. What do you think Ineos are thinking now? We tried everyone in the summer. 2-3 months ago, we decided no one was good enough. And since then, the main candidate from that list has just got a new job in Thomas Tuchel, so we're not getting him. So this list that wasn't good enough 4 months ago is now smaller, and we're more desperate. Do you know what I mean, Jay? What are we going to do here? And is it just Van Nistelrooy to the end of the season and then hope that he doesn't finish 15th? Because that's possible. Sorry to keep rambling.
No.
What's going on?
Well, I'd like to think they have some form of plan. And it isn't just, let's see what Ruud van Nistelrooy does. Because that would be deemed to failure. Because Ruud van Nistelrooy could come in as an interim manager and do quite well. And you could hand him the job full time and he might not be that guy. I think you have to have a plan where it's like, look, Ruud was always going to be our guy. We always thought that. If that's your plan, fair enough. So it's not as reactionary to just let's see what he does with these next 5 or 6 games or whatever. Yeah. Or you have a list. Maybe Xavi's on that list. Maybe is it the kid from Dortmund? Is it Terzic? Who's been loosely linked with us a little while ago. Maybe he's there. I think we've got a list here. In fact, we can go through some of the odds. So some of the
So these are the bookmakers' favourites.
Yeah, and we're not affiliated with any of these bookmakers, by the way. So
literally everyone's on the screen. So it couldn't be more balanced.
Don't say this is our advice on what to do. So Ruud, I think, has just disappeared there. He's 2-5 or 5-2 on.
These are ranked in order of the odds.
5-2 on. Ruben Amorim 3-1. Gareth Southgate 7-2. Gareth Southgate, you can stick that one in the bin. Yeah. Seriously. Xavi Hernandez, Xavi obviously, as we all like to call him, 5-1. Thomas Frank 5-1. Carrick 7-1. Kieran McKenna 12-1. Graham Potter down at 7-1.
Fuck off.
Massimiliano Allegri 22-1.
Right, stop there, because if Allegri's on the list, that is an absolute nonsense.
Has Stephen Alson made the list?
Is Stephen on there?
I think Andy Tate was on it once. So you never know. Usually at about 500-1. So as a joke bet, by the way, before I think anyone thinks of taking me seriously.
Ruben Amorim is the one on there that I didn't mention before. Obviously, he's the sporting manager. Are they still top of the league? I'm not sure if they still are. They started the season very well.
Let's have a look.
I think he's won a couple of league titles in the 3 or 4 years that he's been there. So he's been good. He's not sort of blown the league away, but he's,
Yeah, they are. Well. The 6 points clear, but Porto have got a game in hand.
Yeah, so they've had a very good start to the season, unbeaten so far as well. They've won every game. He's clearly a good manager. I just think the thing we have to remember with Man United that, unfortunately, if you're watching this and you're not a United fan, this doesn't apply to any other club. And this isn't like I'm a United fan, so I think United are bigger. Manchester United sell more newspapers, get more clicks, get more scrutiny, get more social media posts than any other English club by a mile. We have journalists and people who come on and speak to us and say, when I write about Manchester United, it is double when I write the same story about Man City. It is double any other person. That's not like my opinion because I'm a deluded United fan. That just is the truth. So whoever comes in is going to be under more scrutiny, have more digs, have more analysis than any other manager in the Premier League. So what might work for Liverpool with Slot or for Chelsea with Maresca might not work for United. We're trying to find the absolute diamond here that can not just handle the press, can not just handle the players, can not just handle the weight of people like Sir Alex Ferguson's legacy and the failures of the people that have come after him. You've got to be able to handle all of that off the pitch, and then you've got to have the tactics to beat Arsenal and City and whoever else in the Europa and Champions League. Like, you've got to be a perfect person to do this with Manchester United. That's the problem, and that's why we need Ineos going forward to take a lot of the weight off of him. Whoever we bring in, we have to decide they are the right person. And Ineos have to take as much weight off of that man as they possibly can. They could never truly do that with Ten Hag because he wasn't their guy, and it was clear that they didn't really back him. There has to be a different look around Ineos when they bring this person in, because otherwise it's an impossible job. Even Sir Alex Ferguson coming into this team now might struggle to do all of that, because there's so much scrutiny, and when you bring social media into it, when you bring constant 24/7 news and analysis shows into it, people like us into it, and we're not trying to put pressure on the manager. I think we've defended Ten Hag more than most people, but everyone knows that it's a constant talking point, and you have to be able to overcome every single thing that's wrong at Manchester United as a single person. It's so hard. Like, who could even do it? Amorim could go to City and win the league next season. The same manager might fail to even get his players looking like they know what tactics.
Ten Hag could have gone to City and won the league.
I think he would have done.
Yeah,
if he'd gone straight from Ajax to City, he would have continued success with them because he's won trophies with us.
He finished third with us in his first season, so there's every chance like hey, you'd gone to City, you'd have done a lot better. Let's get in some more comments and then we'll go back to you. Joshua Bowater says gutted about this, but it was inevitable. I'll be disappointed. Oh, sorry, we had that one. Paul Gill. Have we had this? I think we have. Sorry. Luke H says, Joe and Jay, fair play to you both for the balanced and nuanced coverage this past few months. Never lost your heads around Ten Hag. Thank you. Discombobulates us. Cheer up, Joe. Parag says, same feeling about Ollie's sackings, or Ollie's sacking, I should say. The manager's sacking is justified, fair enough, but some of these high-earning players need to be sacked as well. Pinchbat 4000 says, here we go, again, back to square one. Best we can hope for is a bit of bounce under Rude, then pray Ineos get the next appointment right. Mark Slade says, I can see it now. Southgate will get the job. It's fucking madness. Mike, who's been a member of the first team for 9 months, says, get Ollie in. Never should have been sacked, but also can not start over every 2 years expecting a different result. Definition of insanity. Slyburner says the children got what they wanted. DB Cooper says, J. Joe, love you boys. JJS says, I have to get rid of some of these players now. Several have survived again. Patrick says, lean Christmas ahead for Joe. Without his Ten Hag money, because obviously Joe's on the payroll of Ten Hag. That's a thing.
That's why I've worn this jacket every day for the last 6 months.
Jesus,
I'm
wept.
rolling in it.
Do you know what I mean? You're also on the payroll of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I think, because you backed him as well, didn't you?
Yeah.
And
I'm on the Glazers payroll, which is weird because I wanted them to go when Ineos came in, but I'm on the Ineos payroll, so it's okay.
I wish you'd share some of this dough with me, bro. Do you know what I mean? Not really, though, Clips. It's silly to want Erik Ten Hag sacked and want Mourinho in. Sorry, I will come back out of these chats in a minute. I'm just trying to get through. Luke 8 says, Jay, we won't forget you wanted Kieran McKenna, mate. I said it out of the list that we were given. If we were to sack Ten Hag in the summer, why not just go for the child?
Well, again, though, that's like Vincent Kompany just got the Bayern Munich job.
Yeah.
Like, getting McKenna now would like, he's saying don't forget, like, I don't know, is he saying that as though you look like an idiot because Ipswich aren't doing very well? Or is he just saying...
I don't know if he's a bit of kidology. I don't know if it's kidology because I think when we was given a list of like, the list that was given was like Southgate, Zidane, Thomas Frank, I don't think Zidane was on it. I think it was Thomas Frank, Tuchel. Yeah, I said, if we're going to take a punt on someone, why don't we just go for it and take a punt on someone who might end up being the greatest manager ever for all we know. Yeah. Unlikely, but slightly tongue-in-cheek. Owen Sawyer Hartley says, I don't understand keeping him in the summer to then get rid of him in October. Makes no sense to me after buying his players. We were shit, though. Other comments as well. I don't just want to make this about...
Ten Hag.
No,
it needs
don't listen to what I make about Ten Hag and Manchester United. Chris Holt says, Xavi coming in means boring possession football where we'll get beaten by fitter and stronger teams. Give it a rest. Aladdin Insane says, no manager in their right mind will join this club. I want to push back on that slightly.
Yeah, they will.
Because Manchester United, right, despite our many faults, and we have got many faults, are still the biggest club in England by a country mile. You're still taking charge of one of the biggest clubs in the world. You're still taking charge of a club that's got 75,000 fans through the gate every week, that's won more Premier League titles and more Championship titles or titles than any other club in England. It's still a huge club. We've still got an academy that has got some of the most talented youngsters in the world there. And we've still got, despite the fact we're in the bottom half of the table, some very talented players in the squad. So there's every reason a manager would want to come in. Plus, let's not forget, you're going to be on a few quid. You're going to get sorted out. And, as if you're lighting enough, you're going to be given a little bit of breathing space because this is the Ineos appointment.
Yeah.
This isn't the one they inherited. This is their guy they're bringing in. So you will get a little bit of leeway there. So I think that despite the fact it is a bit of a shambles in many respects, it's still a very, very good job at one of the biggest clubs in the world.
Do you know what's going to make me absolutely furious as well? Is if we have, I mean, I'll love it on one hand.
Love it if we beat them.
But if we just all of a sudden start scoring loads of goals and playing really good under Van Nistelrooy, it's going to make my fucking blood boil, that. Because he's already the coach, Jay. Like, imagine you sack the manager. And I'm not saying that everything Ruud says is agreed upon by Ten Hag, because I'm sure there's times where Ten Hag overrules him, so we might see some tweaks of tactics and stuff. But if all of a sudden these lot that have missed 22 of the 26 big chances they've had this season start bagging 3 and 4 goals a week like it's 1999 all over again because the manager has gone, that's going to really piss me off. Because you see it, don't you?
Yeah.
You just see it constantly. Like, new manager comes in, look at, I mean, there's loads, it's literally countless times where this happens, and obviously confidence is a big thing, so that will make a difference. But it's just like the same thing happens again and again. How many managers have we sacked in their 3rd season now? What is it, 4?
Well, that's Ole, Jose, Ten Hag. Van Gaal didn't quite make it to his 3rd season, did
So
he?
after 2 full seasons.
Well, you can throw Van Gaal in there,
Yeah.
And then the ones I've already mentioned
It's
as well.
literally like everyone except David Moyes. It's the same. We need to realise that the sort of life cycle of a manager is they come in and you get instant success or thereabouts because new tactics, it's exciting, I'm trying my best, there's less pressure because if we lose he's not going to get sacked and I'm not going to get as much scrutiny. You do well, you finish 2nd in Solskjaer's case, you finish 2nd in Jose's case, you finish 3rd in Ten Hag's case, you win a trophy in all but Ole's case of those. Then things start getting rough, and you see the fact that a lot of these players just don't have the innate quality to win games when the manager is on the line. The manager gets sacked, and you start again. That is the loop at Manchester United. Somehow we have to break that, either with better players, a manager that can somehow overcome it, or with a different way of running things. But we can't just keep doing the same thing, because for 4 managers in a row, they've had 1 good season, 1 shit season, been sacked.
Yeah.
It keeps happening, Jay. Like, something has to change. And we can't just assume that getting the right guy in is going to change that. Because it might do, but everything else needs to change as well to make sure that the right guy is, at the minute, it's possible that there's one person on earth who can do things and win things the right way at United.
Yeah.
And we're just trying to find this sort of diamond in the middle of nowhere. But what we need to do is expand the way we do things so that instead of there just being one possible sort of person that can succeed, there's about a dozen people that could succeed under the parameters that we've got. And that's the thing that United need to sort out, because at the minute, there's just no chance that someone like, I can see you've got on the screen there.
Yeah, I was just trying to get producer Ethan's attention. I've just sent him this. I don't know if this is mischief making by Football on CNC Sports. They've said Gareth Southgate is one of the bookies' favourites to become the next permanent manager of Man United. He would become the club's first English manager in 38 years.
Wow.
Hey, there's a record-breaking stat that we can all get our teeth into.
Do you know something with him, though?
With Gareth Southgate.
And I don't want Gareth Southgate at all. I don't think it will happen. I think it's just a bookie's favourite is completely different to who the club actually wants. Bookie's odds are just based on who's betting on who. So the most famous managers are always going to be higher up on that list because more people know them and therefore bet on them. But at least, he would be a radically different approach, wouldn't he? It wouldn't work.
No.
But do you think that Ineos could go for something very different, like a McKenna, like, I don't even know, bring someone through from the under-18s or whatever? What's the
Adam Lawrence, who's smashing it.
Like, could it be something like that? That's not like which manager on earth has won the most trophies in the last 5 years? Let's get him. Could it be and again, I don't mean Southgate specifically, but could it be a completely different approach, do you think? Or do you think it will be follow what's worked for United and other clubs in the past and get the best manager that's available?
I would presume it'd be the best manager available because we've kind of gone for best in class under Ineos. They've gone to City and they've gone, let's have Omar Barada off you. They've gone to Southampton and said, we'll take Jason Wilcox. They've gone to Newcastle and said, we'll have Dan Ashworth. Those are the sort of the names and the people that you would associate with success and the best ones you could probably get.
Yeah.
Like Omar Barada, no one thought we could get him from City. I know he wasn't the CEO at City, but he was obviously a big part of their success and they admitted that. I think Pep, and everyone gave him credit for that. So we went and got him. We know what Dan Ashworth had achieved at Brighton and at the FA, going back to the Southgate thing, and also Newcastle didn't want to let him go for a reason, hence all the shenanigans that went on there. Then you obviously talk about Jason Wilcox, who's just gone to Southampton for Manchester City, very well respected. Yeah. We brought him in. So if you look at that, you'd think, okay, maybe they would do the same with the manager then. Yeah. They'd go for the best in class in the manager rather than taking a punt on someone who is a bit unproven. The thing with Gareth Southgate is I don't think Gareth Southgate will be the manager. I don't know. I don't think he will be the manager, but I don't think he should be anywhere near the Manchester United job. Because in terms of what he's done in the Premier League, his Premier League experience is literally getting relegated with Middlesbrough about 10 years ago.
More than
15 years ago, sorry.
Exactly. Yeah.
So whenever it was.
Yeah.
So he's got, I said this a few years ago or a year ago, whatever it was, when he's linked. He's got no experience of the Champions League, I know we're not in it, or managing a team in the Champions League, we want to get there, or in Europe. He's got no experience of being a success in the transfer market. He's got an experience of working with players on a club level, bringing them through and seeing that success come to fruition on a first team level. He's got none of the traits you would associate with a Manchester United manager having success. Yeah. So working with big name players at club level, working with youngsters and bringing them through, making good transfer decisions, going toe to toe with the la creme of Europe and the Premier League and winning games. No. He's done none of that. I honestly think if Gareth Southgate would have been manager at Manchester United last season, we wouldn't have won the FA Cup. I don't think he goes up against Pep Guardiola and wins.
No,
I don't think he's got it in him.
No, like we've seen from Ten Hag that he has got an eye to win big matches. We've beaten all of our major opposition at home, admittedly, and obviously in the case of the FA Cup at Wembley as well. He's not someone that has constantly failed against the top managers. But with Southgate, his record against the top teams, home, away, in tournaments, has always been woeful. I wonder if, and I know this is just going to sound like a real coping mechanism thing to say, but I wonder if they go for, let's say United go for Tuchel, the expectation is you're going to be challenging for the league title in the second year or whatever, because no one thinks that Thomas Tuchel will be here in 5 years to challenge, or 4 years, when sort of Omar Barada has said United are going to be challenging for the title in 2028. No one thinks that Tuchel would still be there in that time. So going for someone like him makes no sense, because his ambition and his basically personality limits him to 2 or 3 years in a job. United probably aren't going to be ready in those 2 or 3 years. So do we almost have to go for a manager that, and this again is it's almost absurd, but where the expectation isn't to win the league in the second season, so that when we don't, he doesn't immediately crumble like a big manager would? Do you know what I mean? Like, if, let's say you go for Thomas Frank, for instance. No one thinks that Thomas Frank will win the league with Manchester United next season because he hasn't got experience doing it and because we're not quite ready. But people could believe that in 2 or 3 or 4 years, once he's got his feet under the table, once he's got used to managing a bigger squad, the tactics and the nous that he had at Brentford, which has been exceptional, he could grow with the club and rebuild with the club in order to be a title-winning manager in 2028. Do you get what I'm saying? Yeah. If you bring in someone like a Jose or a Tuchel or whatever, if he hasn't won the league by 2028, he's gone already. You almost need someone where the expectation is, in 4 years' time, he and the club will both be ready to win a Premier League together. Yeah. Is that? And maybe Xavi's that. Maybe Xavi is a little bit more of a, he and the club will both be ready to win it in 4 years' time. You don't necessarily expect him to win it next season. Because if you've got a mismatch of expectations where the manager is someone who needs to win the league in 2 years, but the squad isn't going to be ready for 4, that marriage isn't going to work, is it?
No.
You almost need someone that both of them together will be ready to win the Premier League in 4 years' time. Do you think they're considering that? Going for someone who's a little bit of a smaller name so that they can grow with the squad?
Possibly. I just feel that Yeah, I get where you're coming from. And we don't really know, do we? We don't. No one knows other than the people that are in those conversations with Ineos and you know, the hierarchy or whatever. I just feel as well there might be an element of, and maybe this is like Glazer thinking, and it's wrong, but there might be an element of, if we get in a name who's won things and been successful and it doesn't work out, no one questions it. No one goes, why the flipping heck did you get that kid in who's just won a load of titles?
Who is that person, though?
Maybe, let's say, for example, they went with someone like, of who's available, the names you mentioned, like, you know, Xavi's one that keeps coming up. Yeah. Xavi's won La Liga, and he's, you know, everyone knows him. So if you got him in and it didn't work out, you said, well, look, he's a big name. He'd won a title in Spain. We like the way he plays football, whatever. If you go for someone like, you know,
let's say Thomas Frank.
Thomas Frank. Yeah. He's never won anything. No. His biggest achievement, and it's a good achievement, is taking Brentford to 9th or whatever it was. Yeah. Then that might open you up for more questioning if it goes wrong. I'm not saying that's the right approach.
I know, but this is how
I'm
it goes,
saying, like, people will go, what the hell were you doing appointing a kid whose best result was getting 9th in the Premier League, who's never won a trophy, who's never played at the very top level, who's got no pedigree? This is Manchester United, not Nice. You're all stupid. And I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying that might be their thinking of sort of...
What did you expect?
Yeah. Like, if we make an appointment that we can defend if it goes wrong, does that come into their psyche? Do they go, look, this is a manager we expect will be a success, but if he doesn't, we can go, well, look, you know, even if it was Amorim, you can go, look, he's won 2 titles in 4 years, whatever it is, at Sporting. He ended their trophy drought. And, I mean, you might struggle to get him because he's the top of the league at the minute. But there's a reason we went for him. You can see it there. Yeah. He's had success. They might think like that. Whereas if you go and get, let's say, McKenna, people go, well, why did you give it to someone who's never managed in the Premier League other than this season when they're near the bottom?
The problem is, though,
you know what I mean, or won anything.
I know you're not sort of putting your flag in the ground either way particularly, but the problem is, whoever you bring in, there is an obvious and ridiculable reason why they were never going to work.
No,
if you bring in Amorim, winning a few league titles in Portugal, so what? Ten Hag did that in the Netherlands, relatively equal sort of leagues. That wasn't good enough. If you bring in Thomas Frank, he's never won anything. He's not a big manager. If you bring in Southgate, he never won anything for England. He's never managed in the Premier League. If you bring in Nagelsmann, he was a bit of a joke with a silly waistcoat on when he was at Leipzig and went to Bayern and didn't really do it there. And then you brought him in from international football. He's won like 3 trophies in his 10-year career. That's not good enough. You bring in Tuchel, I know it's not going to happen now, but he was on the list. Well, he was never going to be here in 2028. Like, he was always going to come in, explode, and leave again. Like, there's no person where you can't ridicule why they are at United. The only thing that stops it being an obvious wrong decision is them winning. So it doesn't really, to me, it doesn't really matter the storyline that will build around a manager, because there's always one available if you want it. There's always a sort of a narrative that will be built as to why Ineos were thick for even considering the man they've brought in, unless they start winning trophies, and not just winning trophies, progressing up the league table, because that seems to be the thing that does for you in the end at United, isn't it? Trophies don't keep you around, league table does. So to me, they have to block all of that out in Ineos. Yeah. If they think it's Tuchel, not Tuchel, sorry. If they think it's Thomas Frank, go with him. If they think it's Xavi, go with him. If they think it is someone who's a bit more, trophy after trophy in Amorim, go with him. But to me, they can't let a potential narrative around a manager put them off, because that narrative is buildable regardless of who you bring. So I just think they have to go with the person that they think is right.
I'm just going to get in some of the comments then. Can we just talk a little bit more about Erik ten Hag? Yeah. Because I feel like we have spoken about him, but obviously we're focusing on moving forward and what's going to happen. I just want to talk briefly about Erik ten Hag. I'll get into some of the comments now. Danny Shields says he's been a member of the first team for 6 months. The person Joe is describing is Erik ten Hag. It kind of was. Leslie John Cox says Postecoglou. Won't happen, and nor should it. Siddhant Badam says, I just don't answer why the failures of players finishing is on ten Hag. West Ham game, Garnacho and Dalot had chances that were just short of open goal. Nick Collins says, I wonder how Yoro and De Ligt will feel about this. Didn't they both say ten Hag was a big reason they signed for us? They did, but players often say that. This is my Roderick. Regardless of third year sacking, what is Ineos supposed to do? I am like you, don't like seeing this. Don't like seeing it, but this isn't Glazers haven't got a clue. The right guy might be all ready to go. Ratcliffe and co. All praise Jay's shine. All hail the baldness, says Ryan Stubbs. Abhinav Verma says we make managers worse after 2 years. Fact.
That's a funny thing, isn't it? People always talk about how the manager comes in and none of the players have got better. Why is it that we keep making managers worse? Everyone that comes in has got a decent track record, except maybe Solskjaer. But like Van Gaal left Manchester United looking shitter than when he arrived. Jose looked like he couldn't put a team together by the time he left. And Ten Hag, this tactical genius from Ajax, looks like he's never seen a whiteboard with some fucking crosses on it in his life. Like, they all look terrible. And I don't believe that they're all bad managers. So, again, there's so many things that go into it, and you're not going to fix it by get rid of Rashford or whatever. But, like, it is mad that people always blame the manager for everything that happens on the pitch. And yet, managers come to Manchester United. Jose Mourinho was the most proven success of a manager you can possibly have. Regardless of where he is, whether it be Porto, Inter, Real Madrid, Chelsea, he wins league titles. He comes to Man United, fails. That's not just him. There is a problem at Manchester United, and I'm hopeful, and you mentioned there that it's not just the Glazers making decisions because, well, they finished outside the top 4, so they must be crap. I'm hopeful that we're going to do things differently. But there has to be something that is said for the fact that every manager who comes to Man United is dragged down to our level. It's not just his fault. It isn't. And it's not just Jose's or Louis van Gaal's fault or Solskjaer's fault. There's a problem at Manchester United.
Do you feel that problem has been the Glazers?
It's definitely been a big part of it.
Because I know now this is Ineos, but it's only been Ineos properly for a few months.
Yeah.
Do you feel that with certain decisions and that have gone on, whether it's Woodward, whether it's Murtagh, whether it's the Glazer, Joel Glazer, has had a certain saying things.
Yeah.
Do you think that maybe has played a part? Because you're right, and the record speaks for itself. Every manager ultimately ends up leaving before they're meant to.
Yeah. Because
of things that have gone wrong. Do you think there is an element of that? Because I was watching an interesting interview with Jamie Carragher on the Overlap, where he said that, and I take his word for this because it's the one thing he does know a lot about is Liverpool Football Club, and he said that when Jurgen Klopp took over at Liverpool, he wanted to sign Julian Brand, and the club insisted on Mo Salah and said, we've got a player that will play for you and will do well for you.
Yeah.
Now I often think, I wanted Jurgen Klopp. One of my first videos, not my first videos, one of the videos we did on Full Time Devils when Fergie announced he's retiring, I said I want Jurgen Klopp. But you think, had Jurgen Klopp come to United, he wouldn't have had the structure that he had at Liverpool. No. We wouldn't have got him Mo Salah, who was integral to his success at Liverpool. He doesn't win a title or a Champions League without Mo Salah.
One of the most fortunate signings in football history.
Just lucky.
When you look at what they'd done up until that point and what they did after that point, it went from being an all-right winger with 15 goals a season at best to being the most consistent winger in the history of the Premier League. I obviously, fantastic recruitment, well done. But the fact that Klopp got him as he was coming in is absolutely unbelievable luck for a manager.
That's what I'm saying to you. There's that. Now, if Jurgen Klopp comes to United, we don't get him in. We'd probably get him the same players we got David Moyes and Louis van Gaal. I think it was around the Van Gaal time, actually, rather than the Moyes thing. I think Moyes was already set in stone. When Woodward met with Klopp, I think it was around the Van Gaal thing. So I don't think it would have worked. Chris Wheeler says, understand the players were told about Ten Hag sacking the same time the official announcement was made this morning. That's a bit interesting, isn't it? I mean, Romano knew before the players did.
It was one of them, though, innit? When were they going to tell him on the bus back home from
Don't say anything, because I know you lot are very good at keeping a secret. So definitely don't tell anyone.
Not necessarily first thing, but pretty, the morning after the result. When else could they have found out? They couldn't have fucking told him in January, could they? No.
Just on Ten Hag, do you think that the players will be glad to see the back of him? Do you think there has been an element of the players not buying into what he's doing, or do you think he still has had the dressing room, as they say?
I don't think it's been like we saw under Jose. That was the most toxic on the field I've ever seen it. Yeah. It looked like the players some of our big players hated him.
They did hate him, and he hated them.
Yes, it was a hate
relationship. He hated being here.
Yeah, he hated being. Yeah, it's not like that. Even under Ole, I think it felt like certain players had gone, "You're not right, mate. This ain't going to work."
Yeah.
I don't quite feel that under Ten Hag, which is one of the reasons I didn't think he'd go. Because that first half against West Ham, United played very well.
Yeah.
Like, if the net. If scoring goals didn't count in football, you look at that first half and go, they were fantastic, Man United. We completely battered West Ham. They had one shot and we made shitloads of chances. And the players were running hard. We've seen Rashford have an upturn in effort and discipline this season in terms of defensive work. Like, I don't think they hate him, but I think there'll be a lot of relief rather than happiness. I think they'll go, oh my God, thank God, because what happens as well is the pressure just builds and builds and builds and builds and builds and builds and builds, and it's like a pressure cooker without the valve in it. Eventually, it just explodes, and the manager has to go. And I think a lot of the players will go, oh, thank God. Like, not that he's gone, but that we're not in this absolute horrible pressure cooker environment anymore. The new manager, if Ruud van Nistelrooy loses 3 of his first 7 games, he's not going to get sacked, is he?
No.
Like, there's a lot less pressure on things now. And maybe to a certain extent, it's slightly embarrassing that some of the big players at United can't handle that pressure, and we see that repeatedly. But I do think there'll be probably a bit of an upturn in form because they'll feel a bit more relaxed. But if all of a sudden everyone's just like banging in 10 goals from 3xG, it's going to wind me up a little bit.
Do you think, in terms of the fans, do you think when Erik ten Hag returns with go-ahead Eagles in a few years to play us in the Europa Conference,
do you know who's going to return with?
Do you think that the fans will give a good reception?
That's who he's going to return with, Erik ten Hag. He'll come back with the Juventus, or he'll come back with, maybe it might go back to Ajax, or a PSG, or someone. I think he's going to get a big job pretty soon.
Do you think he'll get a good reception, though, when he returns?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
You think United fans will look back and go,
for what you've done, you bring 2 trophies to Manchester United.
Yeah,
you should get a good reception.
Yeah.
Do you think he will?
I think he will. I don't think he'll have a hatred towards him.
What would you hate?
Yeah, I think people know it's the right time for him to go. Yes, the league form fell off a cliff basically last season, didn't it?
Yeah.
Sort of beginning of last season, it never recovered. But he's got enough sort of good memories as manager. Like that 4-3 win over Liverpool, that FA Cup win over City. Yeah. You know, getting the first trophy in 6 years, just ending that little mini trophy drought we're on. Yeah. I think he's one of them. And also, without being horrible or being, I don't mean patronising, he's a bit harmless. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? He's not one of those guys he's not a guy like Jose could wind people up. Yeah. Do you know, even Van Gaal could wind people up. I don't see that with Sorry. I don't see that with Erik ten Hag. I think, yes, the footballers wound people up, but I think him as a person, you just think he's not a knobhead. No, he's an all right guy who's just probably a little bit out of his depth with the scale of the problem at Manchester United. And as I said this morning, wasn't helped with a patchy window this season where we needed to get it right this summer, and we didn't. I'll get in some more comments.
Go on, who would be the perfect manager to come in now?
A 50-year-old Alex Ferguson.
I mean, that would be the perfect manager. Yeah. But it would be Erik ten Hag if he hadn't joined 2 years ago. If you know what I mean? Yeah. Like Erik ten Hag, fresh from Ajax now, with Ineos just coming in. Yeah. I think we'd win the league in 3 years. I know that sounds mental, but he was the right manager at the wrong time, I think. Yeah. I think he knows what he's doing. He's clearly a good manager. He's won back-to-back titles at Ajax. I think if he was available now, fresh off the Ajax job, he'd probably do very well. But timing is everything in football. It's literally everything, and unfortunately for him, he just came in 2 years too early.
I do have a little bit of sympathy towards ten Hag as well. I do. Okay. With everything that's gone on, people interviewing for his job can't be nice.
Rough stuff.
Like, that's minging. Yeah. Like, we can sugarcoat him and say, oh, well, they looked at him and thought he was the best. He knew they didn't want him. And for whatever's gone on with the coaching staff, to lose all your coaching staff, like if you go into work and everyone is new, that's got to be, quite difficult. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So to lose that, to have new bosses in charge as well, all these rumours that Jason Wilcox was telling him what to do.
I love that.
That's not, Amrabat the other day said he wanted to stay at United, but the reason he's not there is because of Jason Wilcox.
I love that thing as well, like you mentioned there, the coaching staff, and it's a good point. And everyone sort of assumes that, well, they got loads of Dutch blokes in, he must know them all and love them all. Like, when you think you go to work, most of the people you work with are from the country that you're in, just because of the nature of what Earth is like. So, like, imagine you went to work and everyone was different. Oh, but they're English, Jay. You must know them, like them, and be able to get on with them instantly. Like, just because Ruud van Nistelrooy is Dutch, don't mean Ten Hag knows him or likes him, or that it's just going to work. Like, imagine you went to work. Let's say you worked at a fish and chip shop, and everyone was different. And you're like, yeah, but they're all English. Just fucking get along. Like, what?
No, I mean, you'll love this guy, Jay. He's a Scouser. Yeah. Yeah, you'll love him.
He's
a massive.
Like you
like football. He's a big Liverpool fan. You'll get on with him.
Exactly.
Like, hang on a minute. I hate him.
I love that. It's just like, I mean, they're all Dutch, so they must immediately just get on like a house on fire. Because no 2 Dutch people have ever fallen out with each other and not liked each other.
A subs link in the chat, please. Subscribe to the channel. I'm going to power through some of these comments before we go towards the end of this video. So put a sub link in the chat. Please subscribe to the channel. Like the video as well. Over 7,500 people watching. Not even 1,000 likes. You might not like the situation, but you can like the video. Martin P has been a member of the Academy for 34 months. I don't know if I've read this, forgive me. It says, right, it's fair enough. The results sack him, but who's going to take United on? 2 cups in 2 seasons and 3 cup finals. Please no Southgate. Sandeep Calvade. Ineos have bottled it. You sign a contract extension. Yeah. There's a sub-link in the chat. Go and click on it. Subscribe to this channel, please. If you sign a contract extension, you sort of stuck with your decision. Less said about our toxic fans, the better. I'm going to push back on that slightly, right? I don't think the United fans... I know there's quite a lot of division in the United fan base, and I get it, and there are certain fans that can just go OTT and that, but I don't think it's massively unreasonable for fans to be unhappy with finishing 8th and being sat in 14th, despite the context, and not having won in Europe for a year. If that was Liverpool or even City now in their current form, or guys I should say, or Arsenal, you'd have the same reaction.
Yeah, I mean, look at any of the... United are one of the best teams in the Premier League. Yeah. And people can say, oh, you're deluded. I'm not. We finished 3rd. Like 18 months ago, we finished 3rd. So we aren't terrible. If any of the other teams who are fighting for top 4 every season, which is United's aim, and we've seen, like I said, 18 months ago we did it, so we're not that far off. If any of those teams finished 8th and then were 13th after 10 games, they'd be asking questions.
Of course.
Literally, give me a time when that's happened and they didn't sack the manager. Arteta's the only one. But even that 3rd season wasn't quite as bad as this.
And Arsenal fans try and rewrite history. Like, we always backed him. They were selling Arteta out T-shirts.
Yeah, exactly.
So shut up. Aaron Dixon says, fans cheering when there's no obvious alternative.
Yeah, that does worry me.
Abhinav Verma says, Ronaldo's boy Delo has blood on his hands. Abhinav Verma also says, Armen, oh God, I've lost this because it was. I just saw the beginning of that. I've said, oh, there, I found it. Our mentality is shit. A young manager won't be able to handle these divas underperforming. We need a big name, and please back him beyond 2 years.
I think get a younger manager and get rid of the divas if that is the issue.
Bruno Fernandes has got an Instagram post which my good friend is going to go and read us out. Liam says, could see it coming, but some of those players should be ashamed today surviving another manager. I agree with the decision, but I really feel for him. I like that. Alex Bailey's been a member of the academy for 47 months. Or first team, sorry, Alex, 47 months. Ineos extended by mistake. Now, no Jan window budget. Ruud van Nistelrooy takes training, so his tactics are being drilled already. Club is a joke, raging. Caleb De Turley says he's been a member of the first team 43 months. Give me one sec. Says Ineos failing to inspire me since the day they were announced. Hoping this is the start of better things, but not confident. Go on.
Yeah, this is from Bruno Fernandes. We can get it up on the screen there. After the sacking, he says, thanks for everything, boss. I appreciate the trust and the moments we shared together. I wish you all the best in the future. Even knowing the last period isn't great from all of us, I hope you fans can keep with the good things the manager has done for our club. And that's sort of to the point of his reception and the way he's spoken about as a manager. And I think that history will probably be quite kind to Erik ten Hag. I do think that FA Cup final win was such a massive game, like you said, such a phenomenal moment as a United fan. It felt fantastic. Beating City and deserving to, outplaying Man City, is something that we very rarely do, and people very rarely do in cup finals in particular. So, as it is with a lot of United fans, we'll probably look back on United managers will probably look back on Ten Hag's time with a bit of rose-tinted glasses. But like I said 2 months ago or a month ago when we lost to Tottenham, it's felt inevitable, hasn't it? It just has.
Yeah, it has. Ivan Chung says, I don't like this at all, but I think with Ineos this time is different. I think they might got a plan going, and at least they have football people. Leslie Johncock, I think we've read that one, sorry. Forgive me if I've missed any of these. It's been absolute carnage here. Dan says, out of the managers of the last 10 years, this one hurt. Luke H says, Joe Smith, this is an intervention. Mayuk Aguali says, Jose Mourinho, I consider one of the best jobs in my career was to finish second in the Man United in the Premier League. That's in quotes. He says, I hate him, but he was right. Joshua Bowater says, if I was an up-and-coming manager, I'd avoid United like the plague. It's a career graveyard for managers and players alike. Sidant Badam says, Real Madrid 6 points off Barca right now. Hope they sack Ancelotti so that we can get him, and at this point, he's the only realistic option.
Do you know how quick people would tear Ancelotti apart if he came to United? They'd be calling him a granddad and a football dinosaur, and he's no tactics, just vibes, and that works at Madrid when you've got da-da-da-da and da-da-da-da. But when it's, whoever, Ahmad and Garnacho, you're not going to do it. He'd get torn apart.
He would.
He's one of the best managers of all time, and everyone knows he's not a tactician. And that is literally the fatal flaw in Ancelotti.
You'd see tweets saying, can't believe we ended up with this Everton reject. Like,
do you know what I mean?
That's his career.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
He's a dinosaur. That's what people would say.
Yeah. Manazis, Paul says, bring Jose back. Don't know about that one, our kid. Angela Waits says, knocking Liverpool out with that Ahmad moment was immense. Yes, it was. It was immense. Winning the FA Cup final was immense as well. You're right, son.
Yeah, it's just horrible, isn't it? Whether you wanted him to go or not, and I'm sure some people are rejoicing, but what you now have to do is look ahead at the next step, and it's a really difficult one. Getting the right manager is hard.
This is
very hard.
BK says, results made me disgusted, no doubt, but doing the same things again and again, expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. Cycle begins. Thank you to everyone who has got involved in that chat and the comments for that bit of a mammoth one there. Breaking news, I'm sure you know, I don't need to repeat it, but we know that Erik has been sacked. We're going to be back later on today. Me, Ronaldo Brown, Joe Smith. We're going to see the reaction. We know what's happening. We're going to look at the reaction from the footballing world. We're also going to look at who could be coming in next as Manchester United manager. So make sure, if you're not doing so already, you are hitting like, share and subscribe. I apologise if I missed anyone's chat, comments, super chats, because it's just been absolute chaos, but I appreciate all your support. That's been Joe Smith. Go and check him out on Sloppy Joe's. You know where to find me. This has been a bit of breaking news. Erik ten Hag is no longer the Manchester United manager. Ruud van Nistelrooy is in as interim boss, and we'll see who takes over for him. Thanks for watching.